morning, Spiritual Life Center. Welcome to the SLC Sunday Experience. We're so glad you're here today. We know you are in the right place at the right time.
Just where you are meant to be, whether you're live streaming or you're here with us in person. We have a great service for you. Gregg Levoy's here. Oh, you'll hear more about that later. And now we're going to sing about how everyone is welcome here. Here we go. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. In the right place, I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. Good morning to those live streaming. You're in the right place at the right time. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I am meant to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome. Oh, my soul is welcome. Oh, my soul welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome. I'm getting the message. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here. My soul is welcome here. Come on, ladies. My soul is welcome here. You know it is. My soul is welcome here. 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 My soul is welcome. I am getting the message loud and clear. My soul is welcome here.
Well, good morning to the Spiritual Life Center Experience. And good morning, Rev. Deborah. Good to have you here this morning.
Good morning, Reverend James, and we greet you this morning in the name of all that is good, all that is holy, and all that is sacred, and in the warm and loving energy of this ministry, Spiritual Life Center. If you're with us for the very first time today or live streaming for the very first time, we especially want to welcome you because we know that you are not here by accident. Everyone is here by divine appointment. And we're just so excited to have you with us today because it's an exciting day. And we also get really excited and just thrilled beyond belief when you silence your cell phones.
Doesn't take much for us to get excited.
And relieved.
And now that we've created that clearing to connect with the presence, let's commune with it for a moment. And know that the Spirit of the living God is always calling our name to be the full expression of the presence and the power and the love of God in our own unique ways. For we contain every quality of this presence, the qualities of divine and perfect love, peace that passes all understanding, a joy that is limitless, the health, the vitality, the vigor, the wholeness, the visions of possibilities for ourselves and for our world. We are here to let God be God in us. And so every thought we have, every word we speak, every action that we take is to be in alignment with the highest possibilities of that spiritual presence. And as we radiate these qualities from the depth of our being into our world, We can say, as the master teacher said, that when you see me, you see the presence that sent me, because this presence and I and all of us are one. So we're grateful to have this opportunity to anchor on earth all the qualities of the Spirit of God, so that we will rise up to who and what we are when we're seen at our highest and our best. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen. Well, each week we've been just stating and affirming and speaking aloud the unity principles, the overarching ideas in which we really base everything that we do upon. So I invite you to join in and saying together with me, so you can say them to anyone else who asks, what does unity believe? And we can say the following: God is absolute good and everywhere present. People are inherently good. Thoughts create our experiences. Prayer and meditation are how we connect with God. We must take action. Well, this morning we have a special guest who's been here before, our one and only Gregg Levoy. He's going to be sharing his work and talk and workshop this afternoon. And I've known Gregg, God, I think I said 2005. I think it was more like 2010 or so that he came to Unity Worldwide Ministries. And he was one of the presenters to all the Unity leaders and ministers as we were doing our transformational experience. And he provided some really great insight to help us become better as leaders of the Unity movement. And he's the author of the best-selling book, Callings, Finding and Following an Authentic Life. And it's been rated one of the top 20 career publications by the Workforce Information Group. And he's also written a book, Vital Signs, Discovering and Sustaining Your Passion for Life. And he's been a blogger on Psychology Today. He's been a keynoter at the Center for Spiritual Living at the Seminar Conference. He's spoken at the Smithsonian Institution, Environmental Protection Agency, National Conference on Positive Aging, the American Counseling Association, and a bunch of other things, including he's been written up in media, ABC, TV, CNN, NPR, PBS. He was a former professor in journalism at the University of New Mexico. You know, he wrote for USA Today, Cincinnati Enquirer, New York Times. I mean, like I said earlier, he's just like the Renaissance man, someone I want to aspire to be when I grow up. So without any further ado, let's give a warm Spiritual Life Center welcome to Gregg Levoy. And I think he said he lived like 15 years in Asheville, and now he's moved to California. He's in Santa Cruz, so he's come on home. So thank you for being here with us today.
It's a good thing he has a really great talk to live up to everything you just said about him.
Yeah, I know how that is. Okay, and also
There's a lunch.
lunch right after our service. So if you stay for Gregg's workshop, you can come and have lunch because the SLC choir will be there with their lunch goodies as well. There will be bake sale items available as well. And we want to thank them for providing that for us today.
And we also want to thank Shirley Brown for the lovely flowers today. And our Wow Wednesday this week is Renee Jenkins. Remember, he tried to come a few weeks ago, and that didn't work. And Ann has some things to tell us about him.
Yes, I'm very happy actually to tell you about Renee Jenkins. I'm so glad that he was able to come. He will be here this coming week on Wednesday. Many of you know that I have gone into music medicine. I am now a therapeutic musician. And what we do is it's an art form based on the science of sound. Renee is a master at that. He creates a space through sound that is palpable. I was trying to explain it in the first service. It is something that you have to experience. You literally feel your body begin to be more grounded. I guess I can just speak for me. I noticed that my breath started to get deeper. My body was tingling all over. It was an amazing thing. Now, yes, you can get a CD. Yeah, you can see it on YouTube. But there is nothing that compares to being in the space that is created by this man. He's worked under the tutelage of some shamans from South America, and he is gifted. And I just highly recommend that you are here on Wednesday. If you have plans, cancel them. You need to experience this. I am not kidding. I'll see you there.
Yes.
And I've And I neglected to say this at the 9 o'clock service, but Renee's program tends to run a little bit longer, so we're normally done by 8 o'clock, but we'll probably go till about 8:30, so just plan on that.
It'll be well worth it. We're going to invite Carrie Friedman to come forward. She's going to share a little bit about our community giving program and one of the recipients. So without further ado, Carrie Friedman.
Hello. Hey. Hi, everybody. Hi. As you know, we have, was called the tithing program, and now it's called the community giving program. And what was the tithing recipients is now the transformational partners, which is Chico Gonzalez from Sacramento High School. His program is one of those recipients, and Chico's going to tell us about it.
Good morning. My name is Chico Gonzalez. I'm a local high school teacher. I teach Spanish and art at the Sacramento High School. The Sacramento High School is a non-traditional high school through Sac City Unified School District. We're located on 8th and V. And for the past 10 years that I've been working there, I have brought some programs into our campus. One of those is the Med-Knowles Partnership Program. Knowles is the National Outdoor Leadership School, and they're like worldwide, but their space is in Wyoming. And what they do there is they offer outdoor and wilderness courses all around the world. And we have been lucky enough to receive 2 scholarships from them. Each scholarship is $6,000, so we get $12,000 from them. Not in money, but in tuition and all that, right? So one of the things that Knowles is trying to do is they're trying to diversify the outdoors. Not a lot of people of color partake in outdoor exploration and outdoor education. So they talk to us to see if we can send them 2 students of color every year to the wilderness, and they can go anywhere in the continental U.S. And so last year, they can also go to Canada, to the Yukon Territory. And even though it's $6,000 and, you know, that's a large amount of money, a lot of our students are inner city students that don't have the resources. They come from low-income families. So they themselves have to raise about $1,500 to pay for their airfare and to pay for their gear. A lot of them, they have never been on a hike before, so they don't have boots, they don't have pants, they don't have any of that. So we're like really happy that the church gave us $600 to help one of our students. Her name is Mariana. She couldn't come here today because she's working to help her family. But it's such a life-changing experience. I myself went on an Knowles course. I spent a month in the Yukon Territory at the Kluane Lake. We were backpacking like really high in the mountains. We were so high that we were seeing the clouds being born in the Kluane Lake. So we did that for 2 weeks, and then we got off the mountains and got on canoes, and we canoed through the Kluane Lake, the Kluane River, the Donjek River, the White River, all the way to the Yukon River. So we did it in 2 weeks, and that's the distance from here to Los Angeles. And it was a beautiful experience. Now I'm trained as an outdoor educator. So every year I take students on hikes, maybe 4 times to 5 times a year. And the last hike is actually an overnight. Usually we go to Desolation Wilderness. But our hikes we go anywhere in an hour and a half mile hour radius. So we go as far as Chico, we go to Placerville, we go to Auburn. And a lot of our students have never been on hikes before. You know, they're confined to the neighborhoods of South Sac and North Sac. So when I take them out there, like for the first time, they experience nature. And I always tell them, I said this in the first service, I always tell them, like, listen to that. And they were like, what is it? I go, the creek. And then they pay attention and they like love it. And they say, that's better than hearing the gunshots in South Sac at night. Thank you. So that's something that we do. And I just want to like thank you for allowing me the space to come here, for donating to our program. And I had a really good experience here. I love the music and the choir. And the speaker is awesome. So thank you very much.
Okay. Well, real quick, in your bulletin, there's a green sheet here. And what's happening is for next year, we're going to roll out a new program where it's sort of in sync with the mission-centric model. You folks are going to get to contribute your ideas for nonprofits that we can donate to. Our program or our committee will still vet and interview and evaluate. And of course, the board will make the decision. But we'll have 12 organizations for next year, 1 for each month, and you all play a role in that. And there'll be for the next month, there'll be a basket and a table out there. You can put your requests in. All right? And I'll be out there for you to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, we do Faith in Action, our community book study, every single year. But this year, I think it's particularly exciting. And I will tell you that the groups filled up really fast. And last Sunday, I had 3 more people sign up to be hosts. So we have 3 more groups that are open. And so you might want to look into that. One of the groups will be here on Thursday mornings from 10 to 11:30. And the other 2 are, one's kind of in the south area and one's fairly close to here. So sign up for that. And we already have a little bit more than more than half the congregation. Let's see how many we can get into Faith in Action this year.
That's great.
And we also need 2 facilitators still. There's two groups that need a facilitator, so if you feel called to do that, and you'll hear a lot about being called a little bit later, so listen. And the facilitator training there's one on Sunday at 12:45, and I will be doing that one, and there's one Tuesday evening at 6:30 p.m., and and Elaine will be doing that one. And even if you're a new host, you might want to come to it, even if you're not a facilitator. But we'd love to see as many people come to that so that we can go out and do this as a community.
Yes, and thank you, Deborah, for doing so much of the coordination of our Faith in Action this year, along with all your helpers that made it happen. Yes. And just a reminder, our annual gala is going to be taking place on October the 11th. It's quickly coming upon us. And we're going to have a reception with hors d'oeuvres and magnificent food and music and a live auction and a Light the World presentation that will honor SLC's dedication to interfaith cooperation. So starting next Sunday, we're going to have a series of fun raffles in the courtyard as part of our pre-gala festivities. So you can sign up today at the gala table. You can sign up as a volunteer, purchase a ticket, and still become a sponsor of the gala as it approaches.
And volunteers are speech therapy is right after service. There are volunteer opportunities for the gala as well, because there are a lot of different tasks that need to be completed in order to make the gala a success. And so you can go out to the gala table and look at the list of all of the different things that are open and available and find where you are called to help make the gala a super, super success.
And many folks have answered the call in different capacities at Spiritual Life Center, including our ambassadors and board members and any of our chaplains. So we can invite them to stand at the moment if they're here. And the ambassadors are wearing the rainbow ribbons, and they will be here to just greet you, answer questions that you may have about where things are, the activities that take place here at Spiritual Life Center. So we thank them for the consciousness that they bring as great hosts and hospitable individuals here at Spiritual Life Center. The members of our Board of Trustees are wearing purple ribbons with their name badges, and they're here to help really shape and guide and set the strategic direction of our organization, and we thank them for their skill set and the work that they bring to help us continue to move forward. And then, of course, our prayer chaplains do the very important work of holding us in confidential prayer. During this journey of life, sometimes we have challenges. They will help you navigate through them in a prayerful, spiritual way. Or if you're just having some joyful experiences, they'll bring more joy to your life. So we appreciate them for the prayer consciousness that they bring, and they're wearing the white stoles, and they're here in the sanctuary or in the courtyard right after the service.
And if you're here for the very first time, in a moment we're going to ask you to raise your hand. But first, we just want you to know there are many, many ways to come connected here at SLC, and some of the people we just introduced can be instrumental in that. And also, if you legibly fill out the card that the greeters will give you, and yes, it's kind of important, put that in either in the offering basket, or if you take it outside to the welcome table right around the corner, they get an amazing little gift.
So if you're here for the very first time, any first-timers, honey, raise your hand. Any first-timers here? Oh, thank you. Keep your hand up nice and high. And we have some ushers and greeters that's going to give you a card as well as a purple ribbon that we ask you to wear on the side where your heart is. And as you wear that, you will be getting that special Spiritual Life Center greeting from, who knows, anyone here in the community, because we all come from the consciousness of the divine love that we are. So we appreciate your presence. We appreciate who you are. We appreciate what you bring to our community. And we thank you so much for being here today. And with that, invite folks just to turn to their neighbor, their friends, the newcomers, and just say, you are marvelous and glad you are here as we greet each other.
Invite you to stay standing and please join us in singing our group song written by Ricky Byers. I feel the Spirit moving in me because you know I feel it. The Spirit. Oh, yeah. I feel the Spirit. Join us in singing. I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me. Yeah. I feel the Spirit moving in me. And I feel the Spirit moving in me. You know I feel the joy. I feel the joy. Joy moving in me. I feel it. I feel the joy moving in me. Yes, I do. I feel the joy. I feel the joy moving in me. And I feel the joy. Moving in me. And I feel the vision. I feel the vision moving in me. Please be seated.
I just couldn't stop myself. I felt the Spirit. Yes, sometimes it is like that. Thank God. All right, now we're going to move into the portion of our service where we have been speaking aloud together those qualities that we have determined as a community that can stand in our way of living with nothing and no one against us. So let us speak those words together. Please have compassion for us when we are being not enough, distrusting, grieving, blaming, powerless, or fearful, because this is who we have come here to be, inspired, in integrity, joy-filled, compassionate, unstoppable, generous, and transformational. And now we will unfold all of these beautiful qualities of shadow and light into our vision statement. Spiritual Life Center is a loving, vibrant family that welcomes home all people and accepts everyone, no exceptions, weaving ancient spiritual traditions with emerging wisdom. We cultivate a spiritual deepening with the divine, each other, and our planet.
Now, in preparation for meditation, I invite you to take a nice deep breath and settle into your chair. And please join us in singing, Hear Me in Your Heart. Hear me in your heart. I am calling you. Listen to your heart. I am here. Hear me in your heart. I am calling you. Listen to your heart. I am here. Calling out your name. Whispering your name. Hear me in your heart. I am calling you. Listen to your heart. I am here. Hear me in your heart. I am calling you. Listen to your heart. I am here. Calling out your name. Whispering your name. Hear me in your heart. I am calling you. Listen to your heart. I am
Take a deep breath and exhale slowly. Allow your body to relax. Drop your shoulders. Relax your eyelids. Inhale gently. Exhale gently, gently. Drift into a light daydream. You are surrounded in a soft white mist that lifts you up and up until your consciousness floats free and you begin to see another, more ethereal realm. Here the mist vibrates and sparkles. Points of light wink in and out, seemingly revolving around you. As you watch and feel this active mist, one of the winking lights approaches and it expands into a brilliantly colored ball. Other of the winking lights approach, each expanding into a brilliant ball of light, each one taking on a different color. And so you are encircled by pulsing, brilliantly colored orbs. They are silent, yet very active and very vibrant. As you watch this light show, you hear the soft rustlings of a voice. It is so soft, it's not even a whisper. And you can't tell where it's coming from or really what it's saying. And then the sound comes again, just a little more clearly. And it sounds like your name. Looking around at the glowing orbs, you realize that one of them is burning just a little bit brighter. Its color is a little purer. And now you know it's calling your name. It is calling you. And when you focus on that particular orb, it again calls your name, just as clear as a bell. And you connect with it, and it gently, lovingly pulls you right in. And as you are engulfed in this colored light, you know that this is where you are meant to be. Your light has called you, and you have answered. In this realm, you know everything you need to know. You see everything you need to see. You hear everything you need to hear. And everything that needs to be healed is healed. And you bask in this and take it in the silence. And now you float free of your colored sphere. In gratitude, you watch as the balls of light begin to rotate around you, faster and faster, until they somehow catch up with one another and merge, billowing into one holy white orb that sparkles and shines and pulsates. And you understand that though you were called to one small colored orb that was uniquely yours, it is also a part of the one holy orb. And that the seemingly small part that you play in life is an aspect of the whole. As you take a breath or two to return to your body, receive this blessing. Oh, my beloved, everything is an aspect of the whole. The whole cannot do without any of its aspects. You are a holy part of the whole, and you are called to do your part. What you do matters. It matters to you. It matters to others. It matters to the universe. When you answer the call, the angels sing. Remember this always.
Close my eyes and I feel your presence all around me and deep inside. I hear your voice and I long to answer. Wake my soul and be my guide. Can you hear me? I am calling you. Eternal soul, everywhere and nowhere. A call from grace to journey home. My beating heart knows how to get there, knowing I am never alone. I am calling you. I know you hear me. I am calling you. I close my eyes and I feel your presence all around me and deep inside. I hear your voice and I long to answer. Wake my soul and be my guide, and I am calling you. I know you hear me. I am calling
That's the second time today I've heard that. And like I said, if you didn't feel anything, please check your pulse, because you're comatose. Something's not right. Without any further ado, Gregg Levoy.
Thank you again. All right. I just want to hear that on continuous loop. Thank you guys again. Good morning. Nice to be back in California. I live in California now. I'm just getting used to this. And for those who might be interested in this sort of thing, there are 322,000 white lines on the freeway between Asheville, North Carolina, and Santa Cruz. I didn't listen to radio or podcasts or talk on the phone or anything for the entire 5-day drive, so I had to occupy my mind somehow. All right, I'm going to jump right in. When I was in college, I learned a lesson that is critical to the work that I do now from a psychology class that I took. And in the middle of the semester, the students in this class pulled a prank on the professor. And it was based on what he was teaching us at that point, which is called classical conditioning. Okay? So most people know about that idea from the experiment using the famous Pavlov's dogs, right? Ring a bell? Good. Just testing. They were taught to salivate at the sound of a ringing bell. And I discovered recently that Pavlov's dogs is also the name of a perfume, which I think has very interesting implications for the menfolk. Anyway. So this is what we did. We took advantage of the professor's habit of pacing back and forth in front of the lecture hall when he delivered his lectures, just back and forth and back and forth. So what we devised is that whenever he paced over toward the windows, we very subtly pretended to be bored, okay? So we slouched a little and we fidgeted and we doodled and whatnot. And whenever he paced over toward the door, again, very subtly, we now pretended to be interested. Okay? So we sat up a little straighter and started taking notes, you know, fixing him with keen scholarly expressions. By the time that day's class was over, we had our psychology professor glued to the door. It was just singularly the highlight of my college years. Really was. And I half expected that, you know, when the bell rang at the end of the class, he would, I don't know, begin to salivate or something authentic like that. But what I saw in that experiment was something I had intuited most of my life. I'd never actually seen a demonstration of it, which was how incredibly easy it is to condition a human being. Okay? You know, to steer them from the outside. And by extension, of course, to be conditioned. And without a word being spoken. Not a word. The entire experiment was pretty much conducted in pantomime. And I figured, you know, if it took us barely 50 minutes to condition our psychology professor, you know, with a new set of behaviors, a new direction in life, if you will, I tried to imagine the effect on me of a lifetime's worth of that kind of conditioning. By the time I was, you know, at that point 18, all right? I mean, thousands upon thousands of messages that every one of us got while we were growing up, and that effectively instructed us in the rules of the game. You know, what dreams are and are not bankable, and what is and isn't possible, how are you supposed to behave in public, what's the reigning definition of success in the culture, you know what I'm saying, what are you personally capable of, who pulls the strings in this game and who dances. And I think the cumulative effect of a lifetime's worth of that kind of conditioning forms effectively a kind of hypnosis. It's really a kind of hypnosis. And I don't even think it matters whether the messages you get are negative or positive or false or true. It's a form of hypnosis. And every kind of human community passes along the message, whether it's families or churches or schools or gendering and Bibling and just enculturation generally. They all pass along the message that conformity is rewarded and failure to conform is punished. All right? In a sense, it's just a holdover from natural law, because what natural law tells us is that those who leave the herd to go their merry way have a tendency to get eaten. You know, it's more complicated in the human sphere, but I think the warning stands. Okay? So when I think of the notion of a calling, I think my observation as well as my experience is that callings cut through a lot of that conditioning because they emanate from the part of each one of us that knows what it knows. You know what I'm saying? That knows what it knows. They emanate from the part of us that knows where other people leave off and where we begin. Okay? And from a really early age. I've got a friend in San Francisco who told me once that she had a conversation with her 5-year-old daughter, Janaea, who I guess wanted to do something that mommy didn't think advisable. So she says, Janaea, honey, I wouldn't do that if I were you. To which Janaea replied, with absolute innocence and certainty, but mommy, you're not me. You know, we knew where that line was at 5 years old. So calls come from that place and from the part of you that knows the feel of integrity in your life and the feel of its absence. Okay? It comes from all those places. And by the way, I'm defining a calling really broadly, just secularly, just so you know. It's the signs and the signals and the urgings and the promptings and the messages and sometimes even the imperatives that come from deep inside your life, that tell you what it's going to take, you know, to stay true to true north. If not true to the sort of the developmental aspects of your life, and in other words, the fact that they change over time. All right? I mentioned this at the first service, that I think the most important vocational question isn't what do I want to be when I grow up or what should I do with my life? It's who am I? And who I am changes over time. And I think so do the calls that come through the being that's being called. Okay? So, and the fact is also that our lives are continually asking us to reevaluate our lives. Continually asking us what kind of course corrections do we need to be making here and here and here and here. You know, constantly asking us that and reminding us that we have a use-by date. You know, and that we need to make good on whatever our calls are while we have the chance. And I think we intuitively know this, don't we? That the older we get, the more the sense of urgency is turned up. Does that seem familiar? And the less and less postponement of your callings becomes a viable option. All right? I saw a bumper sticker a couple of years back that said, "Warning, dates and calendar are closer than they appear." That sort of captures it, doesn't it? You know? The kind of authenticity that I'm encouraging people to do in the work that I do, frankly, it's not even something I think people need to discover or figure out or go on a pilgrimage to find, as much as half the time it's just something you need to remember. Remember, by the way, and religion mean exactly the same thing, which is to reconnect. Religare in Latin, as in ligaments, means to rebond. Okay? So it's something, in a sense, that you already know and maybe forgot and need to remember. I think that's half of it. And so here, when I was researching the Callings book, one of the things I ran across was a college biology textbook. And there was a passage in there that just jumped out at me, and I used it in the book. It was a description of what happens in a fertilized human egg as it grows and develops. Okay? And what it said is that really early on in this process, these little indentations appear in the round cell ball that begin the process of distinguishing one side of you from the other, the head from the hindquarters, okay? It's a distinction that seems to be lost entirely on some people. Even 40 years after they're fertilized. But what it said is that if, at that point in the game, if you were to take a cell from the head and mechanically move it down to the hindquarters, it would migrate right back up. And this is what the book said. It knows what it's supposed to become. So you can imagine how that would strike you if you were researching a book on authenticity and following callings. It's like at a cellular level, we know what we're supposed to become. That's how it struck me. And anymore, when I hear people use language like this, I feel it in my cells, I feel it in my bones, I feel it in my gut, I feel it in, the very fiber of my being. Anymore, I think they're talking literally at some level. I think they're talking literally. And there was a guy that I included in the book from Santa Cruz. He's an artist named Howard Ikemoto. And he described a conversation he had with his 7-year-old daughter. Came to him one day and asked him, Daddy, what do you do at work? And he said, well, I work at the college, and my job is to teach people how to draw. And, he said that she looked back at him incredulous and said, Daddy, you mean they forget? Just imagine how that would strike a 7-year-old, that somebody could forget how to draw. I mean, it's like forgetting how to dream or something, all right? So, when I was interviewing people for the book, one of the things that kept jumping out at me from all those interviews was how many, by far the largest percentage of the people I talked to, told me that they had a self-reflective practice in their life. That seemed really key to me in terms of discerning calls, receiving them, before you even bother discerning them, is that they had the receiver turned on, all right? And they were willing to hear what they hear, which is an acquired taste sometimes, what your marching orders are. But they all said they have a self-reflective practice to strike up an ongoing conversation with themselves, okay? And, nothing extravagant here. Daily journaling was really common. Meditation, therapy, even for some people, is a self-reflective practice. Artwork done in the service of self-discovery, as opposed to just exhibition, all right? Contemplative reading, so that in addition to reading the local paper or professional journals or whatever, you're also reading wisdom books about the bigger picture, all right? So these people are saying to me is, I've got one foot in the outer world and one in the inner, just ongoingly. I've got one in the material world and one in the sacred, one that's devoted to the tasks of just competence and one devoted to the tasks of authenticity, okay? Dream interpretation was really common. All right, there's a Jungian analyst named James Hillman. He said, when you want to know what your soul really wants, turn to your images, by which he meant primarily art and dreams, because they both speak a visual language, right? Art and dreams. Practices like regular short retreats, all right? Regular intimate conversation, one guy said. And definitely your participation in any kind of group whose members are getting together for the primary purpose of waking up. So mastermind groups and women's groups and men's groups and spiritual groups and what some people call personal boards of advisors, even 12-step groups, all right? So some kind of self-reflective practice. And one of the things these can help you do is, among other things, realize there's not just one call in there. I mean, how many of you guys have ever had a sense, or even now have a sense, that you're working with more than one call? Sound familiar? And there's vocational calls, but there's also relationship calls, right? And moral calls and service calls, and the ones you got when you were 20, assuming you got one at 20, aren't they really different than the ones you're experiencing at 45 or 50? Different than the ones you're going to experience at 75. So there's that developmental piece again, all right? So I want to share with you some of the some of the channels through which calls come to us, because they come in a very impressive variety of forms. And I remember reading a poet by the name of Wallace Stevens once said, "I don't ask for the full ringing of the bell. I don't ask for a clap of thunder. A scrawny cry will do." And I love that. To me, that's like the beating heart of the discernment process, is the scrawny cries approach. You know, rather than waiting for the great big calling, which I see all the time in my line of work, people waiting and waiting and waiting for the bony finger of God. And you're missing all the smaller ones that are kind of right at your feet. And those are the fire drills for the bigger ones, all right? So calls come as things like intuitions. An intuition is like clinically a little calling. They come as passions. They come as gifts, of course. They come as dreams. I mean, all the religions of the world seem to agree that dreams are one of the primary channels through which the gods and the goddesses speak to the mortals. Okay? Author by the name of Tom Robbins. Does that name ring a bell? Tom Robbins. He once said, "Dreams don't come true. They are true." When we talk about our dreams coming true, we're actually talking about our ambitions. It's a whole different story, right? And then Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore comes out with a study 10 years ago that nailed it, what Robbins was saying. It was a study of pregnant women, and they found that of the women who had an intuition about the gender of their baby, they were correct 71% of the time, which I thought was pretty impressive all by itself. Of the women in this study who had a dream about the gender of their baby, they were correct 100% of the time. This is a Johns Hopkins study. It came out in Time magazine about 12 years ago. What does that say? I mean, we've got access to really deep knowledge in there, and we're sleeping through it most of the time, you know. So dreams. So calls come through, and this is the level at which I'm always encouraging people to look at this stuff, and will, in fact, in the workshop this afternoon. This is the level. Calls come through stuff like song lyrics you can't get out of your head for a couple of weeks. There's something to that. You know, any of you familiar with a novelist named Ann Tyler? She wrote The Accidental Tourist, made into a movie with William Hurt. That's how a lot of people know about her stuff. But she said, I can always tell what my husband is really thinking by the tunes that he absent-mindedly hums in the car. So, gentlemen, take note. Because, you know, I'm in the mood for love is really different than tied to the whipping post. And the first time I noticed this in my life, I was about to quit my job as a reporter out of frustration, and impatience, and just become a freelance writer, which is a calling I had heard for 5 years at that point. And for a couple of weeks, right around that period of time, when I was thinking of diving off the high board, I kept hearing this one line from The Wizard of Oz, day and night, "If I only had a brain." That one little lyric. And it suddenly dawned on me, I'm not thinking this through. That's a calling trying to get your attention. All right, that's a knock on the door. You're not thinking this through. So I'm going to send it to you in this little lyric. And maybe you'll figure it out, maybe you won't. All right, so calls come as things like a decision that needs to be made in your life now, not backburnered another year or another 5 years. You know what I'm saying? Some issue that's kind of hanging over your head waiting for resolution. That's a call. All right? Patterns that have established themselves in your life by this point in time. You know, like, you know, you've worn a footpath to and from some issue. That's a call, like a lesson you've endlessly had to learn. A mistake you continually find yourself making, kind of partner you always attract. You know, section of the bookstore you always walk into first when you walk into a bookstore. I mean, there's patterns, and I think there's calls embedded in them. All right? Friction. This is something I've noticed a lot. Calls come through. Where is there friction in your life? Okay? It's like in the natural world. Friction happens where changes are trying to take place. Okay? Where does head argue with heart? You know, there's something in there. Where does passion kind of rub up against security? Right? That's one of the primary dramas in people's relationship to callings. Passion and security. Okay? Where does walk not quite match talk? Or where do you fight with people on a regular basis? What are you fighting for or about? So friction is one of the diagnostics also. And definitely the body. I mean, I've got an entire chapter in the Callings book called The Language of the Body, because the word symptom means a sign. That's the etymology of the word, a sign. What's it a sign of? The word pathology, for that matter, means the logic of pain. The logic of pain. What's the logic? Even if it's psychologic, what is the logic? All right? So when I was researching that chapter, I interviewed a guy named Arnold Mindell. Anybody familiar with Arnold Mindell's work? He started something called process-oriented psychology. And he's a brilliant body-mind guy. And he said, in the course of the interview, he said, symptoms are usually dreams trying to come true. Never heard anything quite like that before. Symptoms are usually dreams trying to come true? Okay. And a week later, I got it, because I had an encounter at a writers' conference in Albuquerque. After my presentation, I'm out in the lobby. This woman comes up to me, a complete stranger, comes up to me and says, one of those things that people won't generally say to you unless they're pretty sure they're never going to see you again. You know, it's like how intimacy goes into warp drive when you're on an airplane or something. She said, hey, you know why I'm so fat? Which you're not supposed to answer. And, you know, before I could even kind of gather my wits, she answered it. And she said, it's because I have so many stories inside of me I'm not writing down. That was her interpretation, wasn't mine. And, you know, I'll tell you, there is no science or philosophy or anything that could dispute a self-diagnosis delivered with that kind of certainty. You know what I'm saying? The woman knew her body was trying to tell her something, and she knew what it was. I need to be writing. Okay? She somehow knew that her symptom, in the sense that it was a sign, meant something. And she knew precisely what it was. Now, my question would be, you know, a longitudinal study there. If she begins to write, does she lose weight? That would be kind of fascinating to me, you know? By the way, all these signs and all these signals are terrifically useful unless they can't get through, okay? Unless they're getting nothing but busy signals, you know? And you're tying up the lines constantly with busyness as usual. So I want to say this because I'm aware that I'm addressing a modern, technologically sophisticated civilization here. I want to say this. I ran across an article in The New Yorker written by a guy named Adam Gopnik, and he's talking about his 3-year-old daughter who's got an imaginary playmate named Charlie Ravioli. Google that phrase. It'll come up with the story, Charlie Ravioli. And so what he's saying is that there's nothing particularly unusual about a 3-year-old having an imaginary playmate, except this one is always too busy to talk to her. She's calling up Charlie Ravioli on her toy cell phone and always having to leave him messages. A month later, he discovers she's now leaving messages with somebody else named Lori. He says, honey, who's Lori? And in her, 3-year-old fashion, she explains that this is Charlie Ravioli's assistant. This is somebody he's apparently hired to return his phone calls for him. Wow. You know, and I don't know, maybe I'm being overly sensitive or something, but when our 3-year-old's imaginary playmates are too busy to play with them and start hiring agents, for crying out loud, to fend off the insistent phone calls of the children who imagine them to begin with, it's time to move out of New York or rearrange your priorities or something. Because, I don't know, you know, busyness is a pretty good definition of workaholism. Experts just call it a process addiction instead of a substance addiction. And it's one of the very few socially sanctioned addictions that you can put on your resume. Try doing that with most of the other addictions. You know, 2004 to the present, alcoholic. No. But you could put workaholic. People will be impressed with this. So just, even if all of our works are good works, maybe this is really my point, even if all of your busyness is in the service of worthy and noble causes and callings, when the means to those ends is an addictive process, I think the end result is probably a loss of soul. You know what I'm saying? A depletion of spirit in some way. So I want to end up with this. When I was working at the Cincinnati Enquirer as a reporter, one of my favorite stories, in all the years that I was there, which is about 8 or 9 years, was a profile of the circus coming to town. This was Ringling Brothers. Okay, so I went down to the train station because they traveled around the country on a train, and I don't know, in a fit of journalistic zeal, and therefore short-sightedness, I let the animal trainer of Ringling Brothers convince me that riding bareback on an elephant at the head of the Barnum and Bailey Circus Parade through downtown would add color to my story. So, contrary to my Jungle Book fantasies of how that was supposed to look, which was that I was going to be somehow airlifted on its trunk onto its back. This is the image I had in my mind of how you get up on an elephant. Well, he pulls out an aluminum ladder. And that was how I got up on the elephant. And then he said, the only way to stay up there during the parade is you have to hang onto the elephant's ears. Okay? So those of you who have ridden bareback on elephants, you probably know about this already, but elephant ears have this really unpleasant habit of flapping a lot. Especially when they're hot. And this was midsummer in Cincinnati, Ohio. Okay? And we're talking elephant ear flapping. You know what I'm saying? This is not like, kitty cat twitching. So the only way to stay up there during the parade was to remain extremely flappable. Otherwise, I'd have been thrown. And it was 15 feet to the ground. And you have to picture, I was the first thing anybody saw in that parade. Okay? I'm wearing my business clothes, too, for one thing. Because he sprung this on me at the last second. And I said yes, and I'm wearing my business clothes, and my pants are scrunched up above my knees with the black socks. It was just... it was a fashion tragedy, is what it was. So when I look back on that experience, though, and on what I've learned since then about what's involved in following a calling, that experience has a lot in common with my actual experience of following calls, in the sense that I was caught by surprise and carried off by something way bigger than me. Okay? It was terrifying and thrilling simultaneously. And in it, the elephant couldn't have cared less. Couldn't have cared less. And what that means to me is that I've discovered a kind of an unsettling truth, which is that my soul doesn't seem to care what price I have to pay to follow my calls. I hate that. That seems like a design flaw to me or something. Seems like it ought to care. But my happiness, my security, my vanity, my popularity don't seem to matter to it. It's not interested in whether I live a comfortable life. Not interested in whether I become rich and famous. It's not interested in all of my ambitions. It's not interested in whether people even like me. But what does seem to matter to it is hanging on to the elephant. That does seem to matter. The willingness to go for the ride that a calling implies, to go for the big ride. I mean the one that ensures that someday, if your life happens to be flashing in front of your eyes, at the very least, it'll hold your interest. That much at least, it'll hold your interest. You know? So I just want to say in closing that in the spirit of helping it to do that, the workshop this afternoon is hands-on. This is not lecture format, okay? So if you want to come, this is a participatory opportunity to clarify what your life is calling for from you at this juncture, in any arena, okay? I guess the question we're really going to have at ultimately is what wants to emerge in your life right now? What's knocking on the door for an entrance queue? Okay, so I hope you'll come, and thank you again, James and all you guys. Thank you for inviting me back. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, good stuff there, Greg. And I hope you can go to his workshop. And just a reminder that he has his book available to purchase in the courtyard. So I invite you to get the books off his hands, because I'm sure he doesn't want to carry them around his next trip. We have an opportunity now to get into the flow of giving from the consciousness of absolute abundance, knowing that whatever we give out comes back to us in ways we never have imagined. So simply take your gift, your tithe, your love offering, or if you've already given, know that you are in the flow of this principle that never changes, that what we give out comes back. So let's say our offertory blessing together. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I circulate. Thank you, God. We're all called to be who are here to express the truth of our being. And so we bless the gifts, the tithes, the love offerings that are contributing to this community to help others find their calling and to answer that call, because it's always knocking on the consciousness of our hearts and minds. For this and so much more, we're grateful. Amen. And with that, let's join together and let's sing our peace song. Let us tap it off